Hey guys, happy holidays. I have something a little bit different in this video. Instead of the normal duel, I kind of ended up just doing this drawing for myself. It was supposed to be against somebody, but some unfortunate things came up and they fell through. And I ended up really kind of struggling with this painting, ironically. I thought it would be easier because I wasn't really going up against anybody and I could just kind of do whatever I wanted. But it ended up being kind of a struggle, and I'd like to just kind of talk about that and what I learned from this process and share that with you guys. So the first thing I want to talk about is mistakes I made right from the get-go. I think a lot of the struggle of this painting could have been avoided with better planning up front, particularly defining a lot of things that I kind of just left open as I started drawing. So these are things like defining your vision. A lot of times you can have a very clear vision in your head of what you want the design to be, but as you start putting pen to paper, it kind of gets away from you. You get stuck with anatomy and fundamentals and painting, and it can kind of slowly and gradually shift you away from your original goal of that vision in your head that is this cool, awesome thing. So a way to help with that is to kind of write down and try to define that vision as much as you can. Things like mood and feel. Is it going to be something that's really scary and animalistic? Is it going to be something that's really creepy? Is it going to be something that's sort of whimsical? Kind of having these like buzzwords spelled out on a pure ref or something in front of you will really help you focus on your vision through the entirety of the painting. I didn't do the best job doing all that before this piece, so I started to slide as it was going, and eventually I got somewhere that I didn't want to be. So kind of have a roadmap of your vision and where you want to go with the piece, and that'll really help you get the piece done in a lot more efficient and concise manner. Another thing that can be really helpful along these lines that I think really stuck me on this one is really defining what the end result of the piece is going to be from a polish standpoint. So if it's going to be a fully rendered painting, if it's going to be line art with some color shading underneath, if you define what your workflow is going to be very clearly ahead of time, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches by not going down avenues that you shouldn't be going down. There were some points in this one where I kind of started over-rendering, and it really didn't need to be like that, because if I defined it more clearly, I would have been focused on trying to get just some nice line art with some colors underneath to showcase the design and not necessarily render and paint everything out. I wanted this to kind of be a more line art heavy design with just some indicated colors underneath and some lighting. Kind of got away from me. If I would have sat down in the beginning and said, this is exactly the workflow I'm going to use, this is how I'm going to do it, it would have been a lot smoother and I probably would have had a lot more fun. Hardy Fowler once told me, the worst enemy of a great painting is a good painting. Sometimes it can be all too easy to get frustrated, hit a point where the painting is kind of good enough, but you're not happy with it, and you've spent so much time on it that you don't want to make any drastic changes. Everything kind of feels precious, and it's sort of an unhealthy attachment to the painting as is, even though you don't like it. And I think that's something that can be a really good lesson for any artist out there, especially younger artists, is don't treat each painting as a precious thing, and the time that you're putting in, if you really want to get the value out of it, don't be afraid to make big changes and fix it and make it the best painting that it can be. And it can be really hard to learn that skill, but it's something that over time will really help you get faster and better and have more fun doing the pieces, because when you hit those sticking points, it won't be something that throws you into despair. learning not to treat every painting as this super precious thing that you can't change or really alter drastically can be very beneficial. And I think even just being aware that every painting isn't the most important thing ever. It's just a piece of the puzzle, a step on the staircase that you're going up. It's just a way to get better and grow, and kind of being aware of that takes off the pressure of it needing to be perfect. And ironically, that pressure can keep you from wanting to make big changes. A really good story I heard that illustrated this point well was a story about a pottery class. And there was a professor in this pottery class that told half the class that he was going to grade them on quality, and he told the other half of the class that they were going to be graded on quantity of the pots that they made. So basically, the first half of the class, he said, at the end of the semester, you'll be graded on how good the one pot that you make is. And told the other half of the class that you will be graded on the sheer number of pots that you create. And the funny thing is that at the end of the semester, the people that spent the entire time making one pot, trying to make one pot really perfect, ended up with kind of an okay pot. And the people that just tried to make as many pots as possible ended up making not just a lot of pots, but the ones that they started making towards the end were really, really good. Much better than the people that were focusing on quality. And the lesson of this story and the reason for this is that they failed and learned from those failures a lot. And that repeated failure and repeated learning process, and not treating every piece as something that's precious, but more viewing it as something that you can learn from, is what got them better much, much more quickly. Another pitfall in the art process can be just spending too much time at your computer working on one piece. There's a lot of ways to mitigate this. I think I would have really benefited from getting away from my computer more during this and taking some walks, working on some different projects, or even just stepping back and, making some thumbnails of alternate designs or something, just trying to get the tunnel vision to go away, because it's so easy to just keep working and pushing forward, and you sort of stop being aware of what you're doing in a controlled and precise way. Taking a step back can really help with that. A really practical way of doing that's sort of a trick that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of before, is the flipping trick, where you flip the canvas to refresh your brain's perspective on the piece and see any errors, whether they're fundamental or if it's like a design issue. You can't see it in this piece as much because I recorded on a separate window that was static, so this isn't recording what I'm actually seeing on my tablet screen. This is on a separate screen in a different Photoshop window, but on my screen I'm flipping the image pretty frequently to keep my brain fresh on what I'm looking at. If you've never done this before, give it a try. You'll be shocked at how quickly you can see errors and how wonky things can look after you've spent a lot of time working on something in one view and then you flip it. It's crazy obvious once it's flipped. Being aware of spinning wheels is another big thing that I think a lot of artists could work on, myself included. And basically what I mean by this is, if you are hitting a point where you're kind of just putting lines down all over without like clear direction, and you kind of are jumping around a lot and you're not really making the progress in the amount of time that you want to make, it can often be because you are stuck on something and you're not aware of it. And you might be aware that you're stuck or aware that things aren't progressing very well, but you might not be aware of the major issue that's sort of subconsciously holding you back. And when you look at the piece, you might just think, I don't like where this is, where is that? And I'm losing that excitement to keep going with it. And now I'm kind of just pushing pixels around back and forth and getting too in the weeds. And this is a big indicator that you need to take a break and take some actions. And these actions can be things we talked about previously, or they can be things like seeking input from peers or mentors. I can't describe the number of times that a friend has helped me out by looking at a piece and just gave some small suggestions. Next thing you know, my passion is rekindled and I'm going forward at lightning speed. Or you can kind of go back and revisit things from the beginning that I talked about with kind of the planning phase of maybe you start doing thumbnails. But the critical part is trying to build your ability to be aware of when you're getting stuck and not letting yourself just sit there in the mud with your wheels spinning. Pull yourself out, take some actions to get going again. And that can be a really big thing. And it's really easy to know when you are stuck just because you won't be having fun. It'll be something that you're just struggling with. And that kind of brings me to another point, which is if you are in positions like that, often it's because of a gap in your skill. And it might just be not knowing how anatomy in this one particular pose or spot works. Or it might be, I don't know how to render folds on cloth. And this is another great time to learn something and take a break from the piece and do a little study on that specific thing that you are stuck on once you've identified it. I do this a lot, and it's a nice way to continuously improve without worrying that I'm wasting my time working on something that I don't need, because I do need it. I'm working on it right now, and the things that I'm working on are informing me of what I need to continue to improve at. So that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Next time I will be back to the regular format. I'll have a guest. We'll be doing a duel. Should be a lot of fun. See you guys in 2025.